On this True Law Stories, we're going to talk about Florida's new HOA certification laws, their ongoing education laws, with the expert in HOA laws, Frank Ruggieri. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
And on this, we're going to talk about everything you need to know, how to do it quickly, and the benefits to you and the board and the community of getting these certificates. All right, let's get started. Tell me a little bit, some Florida law, what is this and when did it go into effect?
Having done this for 25 years, I have a good historical perspective, if you will, on kind of the history of educating board members and how the statutes have changed over the years. And it's funny, when I first started doing this in 1999, there was a organization, and I'm pretty sure they're still out there, called the Orange County Homeowners Association. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was headed up by someone that we're all familiar with and love as somebody here in Central Florida, Teresa Jacobs, who was our mayor. She was the District 1 commissioner. Well, Ms. Jacobs was very adamant about educating board members, and as a board member herself, it's kind of how she got into it. So she would invite attorneys, including my partner at the time and myself, to come and do legal panels and educational things for the Orange County Homeowners Association members, which were basically board members of community associations. And we would go down to the downtown public library and just do a legal panel and kind of answer questions and things like that. So back then, there was no real educational requirement for board members. You're running this business. It's as I like to say, it's not a garden club. You're collecting assessments. You're maintaining facilities in the community. It's a business. But board members don't get any guidance on the law or what is entailed in being a board member. There was nothing out there for them at the time, nor did the statutes really mandate anything. Along came condominium board member certification. Okay, that's kind of how it started. Not kind of, that's how it started. In the Condominium Act in Florida, they instituted a requirement that basically if you were going to sit on a condominium board, you had to either take a board member certification class taught by a state-approved education provider, or you could sign a certificate saying, hey, I'm a board member and I've read all the documents. I'm going to read all of the documents and familiarize myself with them, and I'm going to satisfy my obligations as a board member in the utmost good faith and in the best interest of the community. Oh, great. Okay, so you have the option to either get some education or just sign a document that says, hey, I read the documents. That's how it started. It was almost voluntary.
Yeah.
So my partner and I, we started getting more into it. Number one, because we saw a need. You're sitting on this board. You don't know how to spell covenant. You don't know what a deed restriction is. You don't know what an assessment is per se, other than the fact that you have to cut a check to the association once a year or once a month or whatnot. So number one, we saw a need.
Yeah.
That grew. We started teaching board member certification classes. And it was really just out of interest that people wanted to be educated. Condominium board members said, you know what? It's not a great idea for me to just sign a certificate. Let me take a class. This attorney is teaching this class. Let's go learn something. Eventually, that same scheme got put into Chapter 720, which is the Homeowners Association Act. Now, it's mandatory. So it went from voluntary, now then the board member certification became mandatory, and now they've taken it to a whole nother level. So condominium board members and homeowners association board members must take a board member certification class. In the case of condominiums, it's got to be a 4-hour class. And you have to take that class within 90 days of being seated on your condominium board, or you're basically kind of removed from the board until you take the class. Same thing for HOA board members, but now they have another layer on top of that, continuing education. Okay, so much like myself as an attorney, a lot of different professions, we have to do continuing education. If you're a licensed community association manager, you're familiar with these requirements that you've got to do continuing education and satisfy those hourly requirements. Well, guess what? If you're an HOA or a condo board member, now you have to do that too. You have to do continuing education. Okay? That's a brand new requirement. It just got added to the statutes last summer. And so this is a brand new requirement, and a lot of people are confused by it. They don't know what it is. And let's add some layers of complexity. If you're a condominium board member, you've got to take that 4-hour class. And then you have continuing education requirements that have to be satisfied annually, every single year. If you're an HOA board member, the continuing education requirements are going to be dictated by the size of your community. If you're over 2,500 parcels, large community, and you're on the board, you must do 8 hours of continuing education annually.
Wow.
Annually. And the other thing is that I've confirmed with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation here in Florida, they've confirmed it to me, that you cannot use the board member certification class to count towards the continuing education hours. Those have to be completely separate. So, requirement number 1, take the board cert class within 90 days of being seated on the board. Number 2, do your continuing education requirements, and the board member certification cannot satisfy that requirement. Okay?
So you have to get a lot of education when you get on the board the first time
Well,
in the big community.
Let's think about it this way. If you're over 2,500, but we have several clients that are very large and fall into this category. 8 hours a year. As an attorney, every 3 years I have to do 31 hours. So if you're an HOA board member in a community that's over 2,500 parcels, you have to do 24 hours every 3 years. So I only have to do 7 hours more than you.
That's crazy.
And I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay? So now I do think it's good. I don't know. I mean, the 8 hours, that might be a little excessive. But if you're under 2,500 parcels, then it's 4 hours a year. So what we have done now is we're getting, number 1, we've got the continuing education classes. We've got those ready to go up on our website, where if you are a board member of a community that we represent, you've got those on-demand classes on our website. You can go there whenever you want. I'm going to warn you now that there is a multiple choice exam you've got to take at the end of each class, but we issue a certificate to you, and that's free. So if you're a client of the firm, you're a board member, you can very easily satisfy those continuing education requirements. Go to our website and do the classes on demand. Okay.
And I've heard great reviews that you're very entertaining.
I try to be. I mean, look, you got to sit through a 2-hour class or whatnot, so I try to be entertaining.
Yeah.
I'm a big Seinfeld fan, so I throw in some Seinfeld humor every once in a while. Plenty of good jokes about Del Boca Vista Phase 3.
Do you wear a pirate shirt?
The puffy shirt.
The puffy shirt.
In certain scenarios, and I will go with the puffy shirt, yes.
Good.
If I'm trying to make myself look bigger than I really am, and I want to be puffy, then yes, I will go with the pirate shirt. So that's we're trying to meet those needs for our clients. We've got this on demand. I mean, you've got a full-time job. And that's the other thing about board members is they're volunteers, and literally by statute they cannot be paid. At least not yet. Maybe that'll change soon. So I always make the joke about how they got a huge raise and their pay was doubled from 0 to 0 from the previous year. But so you think about yourself, you're sitting on this board for your community. You're trying to do the best you can, support property values, and help your own investment and those of your neighbors. You've got a full-time job. You've got kids.
Yeah.
and now you have to do continuing education classes. You got to do a board member certification class. I mean, do you have time to drive down to a library or something somewhere and sit there for 3 hours? Most people don't.
Yeah.
So I immediately saw the need for it. You need on-demand class. You got to be, as a board member, you got to be able to go on demand and so that you can do the class at your leisure. And we issue that certificate to you, and now you've got that. And those have to be maintained amongst the official records. That's the other thing that's critical here is it's not just the classes. If you've got to properly document that and maintain those certifications in your official records for your community. They've got to be there. And if they're not, there could be and a homeowner could make an issue out of that. You could potentially have to get off the board temporarily until you satisfy those requirements. So it can create significant issues for the community, and so we try to facilitate that for our community association clients. The classes are on demand and they're on the website, and they are available to non-clients as well. You know, we charge $25 per class, but you know, we want to make them available to everybody. And you know, it was something that I said, look, if you're a client of this firm, we want you to be able to very easily satisfy those requirements, and for it to not be an expense for you.
And you know, I think because when I first heard about this, I'm like, oh my God, that sounds horrible. But when you think about it, you're like we've talked about in the previous episode, you're running someone's community, it's a business, but it's also people's lives.
Yes.
And it probably makes your job a little bit easier too, knowing these things, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's the worst situation I think you can be in is you know, as somebody who is in a particular difficult situation, is when you don't even know the questions to ask. If you don't even know the right question to ask, well, guess what? I think the board member education gives you that, and it puts you in a position where you're going to know the right questions to ask. You're going to know how to spot the issues before they become overly problematic. So to me, it's critical. It gives you that foundation, and then, like you say, my job becomes somewhat easier because a lot of the fumbling and the problems that can develop from not knowing anything about what the heck you're doing as a board member, those can kind of be headed off at the pass, if you will.
Yeah, and save the community a ton of money, those $1 million problems possibly even down the road. And what happens though if you don't get the certificate?
Yeah, no, look, it's and this applies again. I'm going to keep hammering this. Board member certification is requirement number 1. Continuing education is requirement number 2, and they're completely separate.
Yep.
Okay. If you don't satisfy both, one or the other, or both, it will result in a vacancy on your board. You'll basically be temporarily removed from the board, and the remaining board members can fill that vacancy temporarily until you satisfy that educational requirement. So it can disrupt the governance of the community. It can disrupt the running of the business, if you will.
Gotcha.
And all of a sudden you have somebody that's off the board. And most communities struggle to get people to sit on their boards.
Yep.
So we can't have people handicapped and getting pulled off the board because they forgot to satisfy that requirement.
Yeah. Well, and so we'll put a link to your website, and we'll put that in how to access it if they are your clients, and also how to access it on your website. You'll say how to access it if they want to purchase it as well. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. And if you're an HOA board member, you got to do it. And it makes complete sense now. And now you can listen to Frank teach you it.
And look, just to kind of maybe add a little bit of kind of sugar on top for it, I believe when you get homeowner education, you're also going to learn a lot about real estate. You're going to learn about liens. You're going to learn about the easements and different things like that are going to help you throughout your life when you're looking at real estate, whether it's going to be an investment or because you want to move and you want to maybe consider a different community and things like that. So to me, it's going to give you educational benefits that are going to extend beyond your service on the board.
Well, that does help a lot. But I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, you're obviously own real estate, probably if you're in an HOA board,
Yep.
and might be buying another piece of real estate. And understanding all those things, I think, is crucial. Awesome. Well, Frank, thanks so much for explaining this on True Law Stories, and we'll put a link to all that in the show notes.
All right. Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for making Frank and I part of your story. It's been Iron Garlic and True Law Stories.